Please take your seats. The meeting is about to begin. Remember to speak into the microphone, as this meeting is being recorded for public record. Please stand by. We are going on air in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Good afternoon and welcome to the May 8th, 2025 Land Use and Sustainability Committee meeting. It is 3:12 p.m. and we're joined by our Vice Chair, Commissioner Abad, and thank you for joining us, Madam Vice Chair. And Mr. Attorney, I believe with two members present, we have a quorum. Is that correct?
That's correct.
If you read into the record the public participation notice.
Sure. Today's meeting of the Land Use and Sustainability Committee will be conducted in a hybrid format, with members of the committee physically present in the commission chambers and staff and members of the public appearing either in person or virtually via Zoom. To participate virtually, the public may dial 1-888-475-4499 and enter the webinar ID, which is 8505-9923-037#. Or log into the Zoom app and enter the webinar ID, which again is 8505-9923-037. Anyone wishing to speak on an item must click the raise hand icon in the Zoom app or dial *9 if you are participating by phone.
Thank you, Mr. Attorney. And before we go into setting the agenda, today is a historic moment, and I just want to take a quiet moment of reflection because today we mark a historic moment for the world and for Catholic faithful with a selection of Pope Leo XIV. And as he begins his papacy, we pray that he may be blessed with holy wisdom, with strength, with humility, to guide as shepherd of a global flock of people. And I pray that his ministry may be one of peace and compassion, and may his example inspire us in our own service, however small our platform may be, but to always lead with grace, to listen with open hearts, and to act with purpose and with kindness. And so today I ask for blessings upon His Holiness, Pope Leo XIV, and upon us as we strive to be instruments of peace in the work that we do. With that, amen. And thank you for indulging me, Madam Vice Chair, because it is a special moment for
No, it's history, and it's history also because he's the first American Pope,
the first American
which
Pope.
they said it
Yes.
couldn't be done. So.
It is. Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. With that, Mr. Director, are there changes to our agenda?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I'll make these announcements. First, item number 9 regarding a coordination with Miami-Dade County Public Schools to promote historic preservation has been withdrawn by the item sponsor. And item number 20, which pertains to commercial charter vessel operators to provide sanitation pump-out logs, has also been withdrawn. Neither of those items will be heard. Additionally, item number 21 regarding possible legislation regulating temporary and/or transitional housing is being deferred to a future date. And item number 25 regarding potential enhancements to the development regulations in residential single-family districts to protect and promote the character of single-family neighborhoods is also being deferred to a future date. And then finally, item number 26 has been added to the agenda. And this is an ordinance pertaining to distance separation exemptions for adult material in retail cosmetic stores. And this item will be heard first when we're ready to begin the meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Director. So with that, we are deferring withdrawing items number 9 and 20 and deferring items number 21 and 25. And so we're gonna, the order of today's agenda is gonna be item number 26. We're gonna proceed with items 3, 24, 4, 23, 17, and 25. No, those are not the lottery numbers. That's the order of today's agenda. First item number 26, 3, 24, 4, 23, 17, and 25, and then we'll take the rest of the agenda as printed. With that, Mr. Director, let's introduce item number 26.
Okay, item number 26 is an ordinance pertaining to distance separation exemptions for adult material in retail cosmetic stores.
And thank you, Mr. Director. If you could please introduce the item.
Sure. On April 23rd of this year, at the request of Commissioner Rosen Gonzalez, the City Commission considered at first reading proposed legislation pertaining to amending the land development regulations of the City Code to create an exception for the distance separation requirements for certain types of adult material and retail cosmetic stores. At this meeting, the item was referred to the Miami Beach Commission for Women and to the Land Use and Sustainability Committee. This past Tuesday, May 6th, the Miami Beach Commission for Women discussed the proposal at length and recommended the following. Number one, that the ordinance have modified text to narrow what would qualify as a personal massage device so that these devices are limited to the merchandise proposed in the cosmetic store. And number two, to modify the exemption to ensure that individuals under the age of 18 do not have access to this material. With that in mind, we have put together some minor text amendments to the proposal that the item sponsor has indicated she is okay with. And this would basically now allow for a cosmetic store located in a commercial zoning district and where adult material is limited to personal massagers that do not resemble specified anatomical areas as defined in Chapter 1 of the code, constitute less than 10% of the floor area of the establishment, and three, are not visible from any storefront nor visible to minors, persons under 18 years of age. They can be exempt from the distance separation requirements from houses of worship and from residential districts. Since this is a more restrictive change, the administration has no objection to this. And if it is endorsed by the Land Use Committee, we will update the ordinance for first reading at the May 21st City Commission meeting.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the changes and move it.
Second, seeing no members of the public in person wishing to speak on this item, are there members on Zoom wishing to speak on the item? Seeing no members via Zoom, the item's been moved and second. We can show the item adopted without opposition. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Director. With that, let's go to item number 3.
Okay, item number 3 is discuss possible legislation increasing distance requirements for vape and tobacco dealers to protect children.
Thank you, Mr. Director. If you could please present the item.
Sure. This is a proposal that was referred by the City Commission at the request of Commissioner David Suarez on February 26. In the memo, we summarize what the current distance separation requirements are for certain types of retail tobacco dealers and vape products dealers. The proposal would be to increase the minimum distance separation requirements for these types of uses as follows. First, the current distance separation from a school, either public, private, elementary, middle, or secondary school, which is currently 500 feet, would be increased to 1,000 feet. Secondly, a 250-foot distance separation is being added from properties in a residential single-family or residential multifamily or townhome district. Third, an additional distance separation requirement of 500 feet is being added for properties containing public parks, libraries, playgrounds, daycares, and houses of worship. And then finally, the distance separation between tobacco and vape dealers is proposed to be increased from 1,200 feet to 1,500 feet. Should the Land Use Committee endorse these proposed amendments to Section 7.5.5.9, we can bring a draft ordinance to the City Commission for referral to the Planning Board.
Thank you, Mr. Director. I'm generally supportive of this. I do get concerned. I've had situations when parents have reached out with complaints about kids getting out of school and going and buying these products. And I think more and more the science is telling us how dangerous these products could be. So I do not oppose the distance separations. I know there's comments, questions from the dais on the item.
In principle, I'm supportive of this as well. I do remember there was a resident and business owner who came before the commission, I think, a few months ago, who is between two stores, you know, adjacent on either side, who sell tobacco and alcohol. And he also has a license from the state to sell tobacco and alcohol, but he's precluded from selling tobacco, even though he can sell alcohol. So he loses sales to his adjacent
Mm-hmm.
businesses because he can't, under the current laws, he can't sell tobacco.
And we're going to
So-
address that in the next item, in item 24.
Okay, then,
Yes.
never mind. So I'll move it.
I'll second that. And are there members of the public wishing to speak on this item? Seeing none, are there any via Zoom?
No, they're not.
No, not via Zoom. We can show the item adopted by acclamation. With that, Mr. Director, let's proceed to item number 24.
Okay, item number 24 is to discuss the current requirements of the land development regulations of the city code applicable to tobacco and vape sales, including minimum distance separation and North Beach use restrictions, and potential distinctions between standalone tobacco and vape shops and the sale of these products as an incidental or accessory use to a grocery, convenience store, or other similar retail use.
If you could please present the item, explain the item, just so that we can understand it properly.
Sure. This particular item was referred by the City Commission on February 3rd, 2025, at the request of Commissioner Kristen Rosen Gonzalez. And this was discussed by the Land Use Committee for the first time on March 11th, 2025. At the March 11th meeting, after a lengthy discussion, the Land Use Committee directed the administration to prepare draft text amendments for narrow exceptions to the current distance separation requirements for tobacco and vape uses within convenience stores in North Beach in accordance with the direction of the LUSC. In the memo, we have come up with some potential text amendments to section 7.5.5.9 regarding tobacco and vape dealers, and specifically regarding the distance separation requirement between tobacco and vape dealers. We've created the following exception. A tobacco vape dealer operating within a convenience store that is, one, located in a CD2 district fronting Collins Avenue between 65th and 67th Street, and two, where no more than 5% of the floor area of the convenience store contains tobacco, vape, or smoking device products, shall be exempt from the distance separation requirements of another tobacco vape dealer. Additionally, as far as the North Beach use regulations go, we have drafted an additional amendment to section 7.3.10 of the North Beach Commercial Character Overlay District, as tobacco and vape dealers are prohibited within the entirety of the overlay, and we implemented the same text exception, and these uses would be permitted within the overlay in accordance with the exception provisions that have been outlined in section 7.5.5.9 As further noted in the memo, the administration continues to express concerns with the proposed exception and the amendment, and we are not in favor of this proposed amendment, and we would not recommend a favorable recommendation to the commission. However, should the Land Use Committee move forward with this proposal or variation, it would need to go back to the full commission for a referral to the planning board.
Thank you, Mr. Director. So it helps distinguish between a standalone establishment, such as a smoke shop, and a retail store that happens to contain this product. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And so this does not weaken any of the restrictions on the standalone establishments. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So distance separations, any minimum distance separations and other regulations continue to apply for those vape shops that we see that they're kind of nuisances. They're very obnoxious, and they oftentimes sell more than what they should be selling, more products than perhaps what they should legally be selling.
That's correct.
Okay. And so this, so for example, like a Publix, let's say a Publix happens to sell, they sell, where they sell the lottery, they sell, Marlboros. They wouldn't be able to open up somewhere based on distance separations by virtue of selling that product.
They wouldn't be able to sell that product at a new location.
Right. And so this would make it easier for a company like Publix to go in somewhere.
This would not, because this particular text amendment is very limited. It's only limited to a small section in North Beach.
Okay.
And so if you wanted us to look at a larger exception as an
No.
incidental use. But this is expressly limited to that very narrow area that was discussed at land use.
Okay. And that's a business that right now is going through a difficulty because of this.
Correct. This business is already operating as a convenience store, but they're not able to sell tobacco and vape
It
products.
is, there's convenience stores all over the place and, so. All right, Commissioner Bott.
So, and this is limited to a 2-block stretch, so.
Correct.
So we had a chicken restaurant whose name shall remain unspoken, a few blocks north, selling vape products. That sort of thing would not be okay because it's not an ancillary use for a convenience store.
That's
Like,
correct.
It literally has to be a bodega/convenience store. Is there an opportunity to limit the percent of floor area from 5 to 2 or something to make it really like just the back part of, like, behind the register? Because we don't want a whole little section and case.
Sure, you could always lower the number. This is a pretty small store, and so we felt 5% was probably more than adequate. We could go smaller, certainly. We haven't measured it out. But even at 5%, that's still a very, very small area.
Okay. I'll move it as is.
I'll second. Are there members of the public wishing to speak on this item? Are there any via Zoom wishing to speak on this item?
No one on Zoom.
All right, with that, we can show the item adopted by acclamation. And Mr. Director, let's call item number 4.
Okay. Item number 4 is discuss amending the land development regulations to address the additional open space requirements for 2-story single-family homes that exceed 60 feet in length.
All right, I don't know if Commissioner Suarez is on the line to present this item. No, Mr. Director, would you like to present the item on his behalf?
Sure. This item was referred by the City Commission on February 3rd, 2025, at the request of Commissioner Suarez. And the purpose of the referral was for the administration to take a look at the current requirements that apply to 2-story single-family homes that exceed 60 feet in length and require additional open space requirements. And this particular requirement was put into place some time ago to ensure that larger single-family homes that are 2 stories in height do not have blank walls going the entire length of the building on interior side elevation. And to address that, there are specific standards in section 7.2.2.3 that pertain to 2-story homes. We've come up with some draft language that we believe addresses the proposal of the sponsor, and it would simplify the requirements for this, the open space that's required within these 2-story homes that exceed 60 feet in length. And they would also create more opportunity for these spaces to be utilized in a more functional way. Some of the things that we suggested is to allow for this additional open space to not be confined to a regular shape geometry that would allow for more expansive geometry. We've also suggested that the space be measured from the underlying yard elevation as opposed to grade, so that would allow for the space to begin at the average grade. We've also recommended that rather than mandating 8 feet in depth, that instead that be 4 feet in depth, but when you take into consideration the minimum requirement of 1% of the lot area, that just provides more flexibility. And so these are some very, we think, minor tweaking that will add more simplicity to the regulation and would allow for the more functional use of the area. And then the last thing is we've also suggested that the open space area not be limited just to landscaping, but could also consist of in-ground water features and may also contain mechanical equipment if they need to place things like air conditioning compressors or generators within the recesses.
Is the administration supportive of the item?
Yes, we're supportive of this, and if the Land Use Committee is supportive of it, it can be sent to the commission for a referral to the planning board.
Are there comments, questions from the dais on the item? Vice Chair Bott.
Yeah, I'm a little bit concerned about in-ground water feature or decorative pool. I think, these houses are getting bigger and bigger. They've got cement driveways with very little green space, and we're trying very hard to make our city as resilient as possible. And having the space that's supposed to be green space used for a water feature, while it might look lovely, does not further that goal. So I would be okay with this if we struck that.
Now, this, just for clarification purposes, would be an in-ground water feature. And
But if
so
the pool is full and we
Oh.
get a rain bomb, that pool's overflowing.
Yeah,
And instead of having green space that could absorb some of the rain bomb rain, we have a pool that is now overflowing. So that, I would support it without that particular phrase.
Okay. So since the sponsor of the item is not present, maybe we should defer the item so they can chime in on it. I don't know if he's on via Zoom. He's not on via Zoom?
No.
Okay. So then out of a courtesy, let's defer the item to the next month so that, I think it's good feedback if perhaps the planning director could share the feedback with the sponsor of the item, and then we can defer to the next month.
one other thing I would mention, just as a clarification standpoint, because you do bring up a good point, Commissioner Bott,
Very good
regarding
point.
regarding how these water features, once they fill up, they don't allow percolation. The minimum pervious area requirements of the lot would still be applicable. So if they were to propose some type of pond feature like this that didn't allow the ground percolation of water, they would have to make up that difference somewhere else. So it's not like they would get this as an extra paved, non-pervious area. They would have to make that up somewhere else because the total square footage that's required to be in-ground pervious would still be maintained. That would not be exempted from this.
And what constitutes in-ground pervious?
Anything that allows water percolation.
So it could still be rocks,
Yeah,
but just on dirt or whatever, so that.
correct.
Let's defer it and have a conversation. I still think that, the more green, the better.
Okay.
All right, with that, the item is deferred. Let's go to item number 23.
Okay, item number 3 is discuss.
23,
What, 23?
yes.
Okay. Item number 23 is discuss updates to the resiliency code.
All right, Mr. Director, if you would introduce the item.
Sure. This item was referred to the Land Use and Sustainability Committee on February 3rd, 2025, at the request of Commissioner Alex Fernandez. And this pertains to the periodic updates to the city's resiliency code. As noted in the memo, in 2023, the City Commission adopted very comprehensive updates to the land development regulations of the city code and the city's first resiliency code. And one of the new requirements of the resiliency code is periodic updates to the code so that the code can continually be updated on a more comprehensive basis. And these are amendments that are not intended to be significantly substantive or result in major policy changes, but to basically update the code for things that may be inconsistent or things that would better evolve our resiliency initiatives. The Planning Board and the Board of Adjustment provided a fairly good amount of feedback on these proposals, and we put together a comprehensive ordinance that was based upon that is summarized in the Land Use and Sustainability Committee memo. In terms of the summary, in addition to the draft ordinance that we have prepared, and we're recommending be sent to the commission for referral to the planning board, we've also come up with some additional recommendations to be added to that. First, there are some fee updates for Appendix A that pertain to the warrant process, certificates of use and progress reports that we think would be applicable for Appendix A. Secondly, in Chapters 2 and Chapter 7, to clarify that notices for DRB advisory review and GU waivers be through the Miami-Dade website, which is consistent with recent adoptions by the City Commission that allow all the other land use boards to notice the published notices on the county website. Next, yes?
Just because if I wait, I'll forget the question, sorry. through the chair.
Please, yes.
That is just the newspaper style notification. That's not going to take the place of letting neighbors know.
No,
Okay.
correct. That's the
Thank you.
published notice. That's just the published notice.
Okay.
The additional recommendations 2 and 3 are similar, and that is to address the evolving minimum base flood elevation requirements in non-single-family home districts such as RM1, RM2, RM3, and commercial districts. That clarifying text be developed to address the minimum height of the first habitable floor from base flood elevation plus minimum freeboard. And this would apply to the ground elevation for understory buildings in multifamily districts. That particular elevation would be measured from the future crown of the road. We've also suggested that in Chapter 7, that criteria be developed specific to single-family districts for air conditioner compressors that may be located closer than 5 feet from a setback line when an existing building has a non-conforming setback and there are no practical alternatives to that. And then finally, in Chapter 7, we believe that we should establish standards for outdoor commercial recreation by creating a new section 7.5.4.14, which would set up different standards for outdoor recreation standards in the different commercial zoning districts. And with those additional recommendations, we've recommended that the Land Use Committee endorse this proposal and send it to the City Commission for referral to the Planning Board.
All right, you've worked hard on this item, Tom, and I follow your guidance on this. Commissioner Bott, I don't know if you have any other questions on this?
I do, just about the outdoor commercial recreation space on rooftops. I mean, we spent far too much time on planning board issues dealing with recalcitrant businesses, to be generous, about rooftop entertainment. This, to me, seems like we're making it easier to do that instead of making it harder. Is that accurate?
Not necessarily. Actually, this is adding a level of review that we currently don't have. Right now, if somebody is proposing something like this, we basically, the requirement is just to send it to the DRB. So for instance, if somebody wants to do a pickleball court on a roof, this would set up standards for the boards to review that. So for instance, on criteria C, we say outdoor commercial recreation shall be subject to the review and approval of the Historic Preservation Board or Design Review Board as applicable. So we make it very clear that that is required. D is when located on a rooftop, the establishment shall be subject to the applicable maximum height limitation and allowable height exceptions of the underlying zoning district and applicable overlays. So it's really codifying what we currently do in practice, and we think it's a good idea to have it in the code, so in case somebody wants to challenge that at some point in the future, we've codified it.
And this is outdoor recreation. We're not talking about other types of uses. This is specifically recreation.
That's correct.
And we're talking about on the rooftop of a ground level. We're not talking like on the rooftop of I don't know, a 5th floor where you might be close to other buildings. This is on the ground level rooftop.
This would apply to outdoor commercial recreation on the ground floor and rooftops. So,
Rooftops at any height, so if
Yes.
it's a 5-story building?
correct.
And are we defining what recreation is? Because in theory, dancing could be recreation. The Zumba class, which is different from pickleball, with music and stuff.
If somebody is not proposing improvements, then we typically would not be reviewing anything. So like, for instance, the way they do classes on the 6th floor of our garage, they don't require any special dispensation because it's just people using that. But if somebody says, hey, I want to put tennis courts or basketball courts or pickleball courts on this roof and have a clubhouse with lighting and fencing, that's what we mean by outdoor recreation when improvements are required.
Does it make sense to specify non-dancing / exercise class with music kind of thing? I mean, I think that's,
Yeah,
that's
I
been
completely agree.
part of the problem is that the music becomes really loud, and the more people you have participating in a class, the more loudly the music will have to be played. And not that I have anything against classes with music, but on a rooftop adjacent to, because a lot of we're so small, we all butt against each other. So I'm just trying to protect against future planning boards spending even more time.
Do you want us to add some criteria regarding the use of music?
I think so.
Okay,
I
we
think
can do
that would
that.
be a good preventive.
We'll add that for the draft that would come to the commission for referral. Okay.
Is there anything else?
How time sensitive is moving this item to the full city commission?
It's not time sensitive. This isn't something that has to be done tomorrow.
Okay. I'm going to defer the item to next month. There's just some other things I just wanted to be able to understand a little bit better.
Okay.
Everything that you've briefed me on, it seems right to me. I just haven't been able to go through the entire ordinance as detailed as I would like to. And this is an important ordinance and an important update. So let's continue it to next month, if you
Okay.
don't mind.
Sure.
Yes. All right. With that, let's call item number 2, which I am very excited about.
Okay, item number 2 is discuss a comprehensive branding campaign for the Art Deco District, Historic District of South Beach.
All right. So this is an item that I placed on the agenda, in part at the request of the Art Deco Neighborhood Association. And I see that we have Irene Bigger, the president of ADNA, present here with us today. And we also have Melissa Berthier, the director of our Office of Marketing and Communication. And the purpose of this item was to develop a comprehensive branding initiative to increase the visibility of our Art Deco historic district in South Beach. Not only to highlight the architectural beauty of this area, but additionally its cultural significance to the city of Miami Beach. I think the goal ultimately is to promote heritage tourism, to draw visitors who are going to appreciate us as a cultural destination. And I think with the whole tone of everything that has been occurring, we understand perhaps more clearly now more than ever how important it is to be proud and to celebrate our Art Deco architecture, to celebrate our heritage that we have here. And so this is something great. We have a beautiful district that's tied to our identity and to our history. It's a district that's listed on the National Registry of Historic Places. For over 40 years, it's been listed, and it's just a gem that we can really promote and we can really brand to make sure that everyone, regardless of where they're at, understands how important this district is not only to the city of Miami Beach, but to Miami-Dade County and to the entire state of Florida. With that, Melissa, welcome. Thank you for working on this. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon, Commissioner. Thank you for being such a champion on this, and also to Irene as well. I have a brief presentation, so let's see, PJ, let's see if you can, all right, there we go. So I'm preaching to the choir, I think, on this, but I'll go fairly quickly because I know you have a lot of items. But a little bit of background, Miami Beach is home to the largest collection of Art Deco buildings worldwide with over 800 contributing buildings. And unlike the Art Deco in Paris, New York, or Mumbai, our Art Deco design style is tropical with our pastel hues and our nautical features that are, our postcard. Beyond the beach, which is our number one asset, I think I would say our number two asset is certainly our architecture, and Art Deco is our crown jewel. So Art Deco has always been one of our marketing pillars, and it really gives our community a sense of pride, and for visitors, it provides an authentic heritage tourism experience, and we know that's very good for business. So our strategy this year, it being, of course, the centennial anniversary of Art Deco, was really to celebrate the design movement, and we've done a series of things already, and a lot more in store, and I kind of just wanted to walk you through in this presentation briefly. And the first thing is to show off our design, I guess, publicly for the Art Deco district. So there you go.
Love it.
And something that I've heard a lot, and I spoke to Debbie Tackett, to Tom about this, is, I've heard Art Deco Historic District, Art Deco Cultural District, other people have named it the district. And in speaking, it really, speaking to Debbie, it was like, it's really the Art Deco district. So we wanted to make sure, and hopefully you can see on the screen there, without the subtitles, you can see the logo there. And of course, with our Miami Beach logo down below. And this is in situation. So currently, this is a sign that I promise is going to be removed soon with the help of Public Works. We are revamping our kind of dilapidated signs that are out there. So this is an old sign, and this is the new sign that will be installed soon. The only image, the bottom right image, is going to be changed. We actually just photographed that today with a MIMO structure within the district. And I also want to thank the GMCVB, who helped us with the purchase of artdecodistrict.com. More on the website later. But everything will have kind of a QR code, and will take you to the website, which I'll explain in a second. And of course, MDPL. We always amplify their weekend, and we did this past January. The website was super exciting. Hopefully you all saw it. It's miamibeachfl.gov/architecture. Perfect timing to launch it last week after, Art Deco was under attack. But we're past that. And it's it's a lot of web content beyond Art Deco. It does talk about MIMO and our other types of architecture in Miami Beach, but Art Deco, again, is our crown jewel. And so it's a great website that really delves in, and we're able to build upon. So if you haven't seen it, it's on our homepage. There's a banner directing to it. But I'll just plug miamibeachfl.gov/architecture. We've done several press releases over the course of this past year. There in that image, you'll see one that we did about the repainting of the historic Ocean Rescue headquarters, the paint job, which was developed along, the fabulous Barbara Hulinicki, and have had, a lot of media coverage. I also did want to give a shout out to the VCA. There was an article that published this past week in Better Homes and Gardens that had a reach of 448 million. And it really took readers, captured the history, the grandeur of Art Deco, and gave readers an ability to maybe bring some of that architecture, that Art Deco, into their homes. So, congrats and kudos to the VCA for doing that. Our social media, Art Deco, I guess, as I had mentioned before, is organically part of our social content. And here's a snapshot of our current grid. And as many people know, our Instagram is highly curated. 45% of our followers actually don't even live in this country, so they really do appreciate seeing the beauty and the splendor of what we have to offer. So what you see there is, 22% of our current grid this year is for Art Deco. And just those 4 posts alone that you see on the screen is 54,000 impressions. And the magazine that went into everybody's home, I brought props here, but, obviously our cover story was the glamorous century of Art Deco, and that got a lot of great reviews, and even after 100 years, I think we're still looking really good. So shout out to PJ, Guillermo, Martin, and Aaron that, you hear their names often called in these meetings, and when they're not in these meetings, they're producing really beautiful videos, and they did this a few months back, highlighting Miami Beach's architecture, and that's something that's on our website as well, on the new website. Now, what are we doing next? Super excited, and I cannot take the credit because this is being spearheaded by the Mayor and Commission Office and DeGiorgi, who really is taking the lead on this. And this is going to be in the current Galleria space where we have the fabulous World War II exhibit. There's going to be an Art Deco exhibit, and it's not just about Miami Beach's Art Deco. It is about Art Deco worldwide. So you'll see like an example of, and again, these are just draft copies, but you'll see like the black panel would be Paris versus our tropical panels would be information about Miami Beach. And super excited about the Instagrammable moments, and that's just one of them. There's going to be three kind of opportunities. That would be a swing that doesn't move. It looks like it's going to move, but just for safety reasons, it is stationary. And we want people to say, I gotta go to 11th and Lemus Park, 11th Street and Ocean Drive to sit on that swing and to take a picture and then to send it to my friends all around the world. That's really our attempt, and hopefully they stay there and they learn about Art Deco. And Art Deco really is, again, preaching to the choir, but our fashion, our furniture, our graphics certainly has been inspired by this movement. And then another thing that I'm super excited about, and I did bring props here, is a map that we want to do. And a lot of this would not be possible without the help of the GMCVB. I cannot say that enough, because the idea is to do a really beautiful map. And see, PJ, if you want to take the presentation out, because I'm going to do a Vanna White moment here. So do an incredible map, and I know these maps exist, right? MDPL does have one, but we want to do something similar, but something that we can give hotels and they can give to all their guests, and they're going to keep, because it's a great size, and when you open it up, this is not from Miami Beach, but we are working currently on doing a beautiful map that will highlight important buildings, include information about our important architecture, facts, and that's pretty much a rundown. Love this, this is a great topic, and really proud of the work that the team is doing.
This is great. You have gotten the vision of branding the Art Deco historic district and really developed it into something that highlights our cultural and historic values, and that shows how important it is for our tourism and for our economic development. What is it that you need from us as a committee? What is it that you need from the city commission? Is I want to make sure that these efforts have all the resources that could possibly be needed now more than ever. It is a centennial. It's a centennial that needs to be a celebration, because our history is not ending. It's only beginning. And we need to make sure that that message is resonating. And the moment is now. And so do you need anything from us?
I would say keep championing what you're already doing. Tell everybody about Galleria once we have the opening date. I'm hearing June 1st, but again, that's DeGiorgi to give me the final date, because I think it's going to be something really special, and it'll be open for several months. So just as much buzz as we can get, that's what I would suggest.
Is there a way, because I think one of the challenges that happens is that people are in the Art Deco district, and they don't realize that they're in the Art Deco district. Is there a way to do either flags, the banners on the light poles, something around the perimeter that tells people you're entering this district?
Yeah, we certainly will be doing pole banners for Galleria, and then we thought about maybe tastefully doing something like a small vinyl on a building. I don't want to, I'm sensitive to sign pollution, as you know, Commissioner.
Yes.
I'm like, yeah, so I think certainly in like more of the tourist areas, but there's certainly a ton of buildings that are part of the Art Deco district that are residential. So if they can have some sort of vinyl that just, says something like part of the district, we can certainly explore that.
That would be great.
Yeah.
Vice Chair Bond,
First of all, I'd like to be added as a co-sponsor. if
please,
that's okay.
yes, of course.
I've a couple of things. So as you're holding up the graphic, it might be a cool idea to take the vinyl on buildings and have the actual logo be cut out, so each individual building's color pops out. So the continuity is the black or the blue, whatever you end up doing it. But if it's on a blue building, you've got the blue logo. On a pink building, pink logo.
I love that.
So marketing branding at your
Love it,
service.
exactly.
Listening to, I mean, I know about 100 years of Art Deco, but as you were presenting it, I'm like, oh, 100 years, like Blue Zones. Like, there might be a way to sort of, I don't know what it is yet, but there might be a way to sort of merge those story streams. And then, it's not something that I've brought to commission yet, I'm still working on it, but there is going to be an event in the fall correlating Miami Beach and Mumbai Art Deco. I don't know if you've heard any rumblings about this, but it's going to be super cool, and MDPL is involved, and there are lots of different organizations that are involved, and it's going to be 3 or 4 days, and the Wilsonian, and so as soon as we are a little bit further along, I am going to come hit you up, because I think it'd be a great piece in the fall issue of the
Please do.
newsletter, and I think there's a lot of opportunity to tie in, and, you know, Art Deco is, you know, we've got a very distinctive style of it, and look at it now because before the state takes it all away.
No,
but it
it's
is
not gonna happen.
it is a global movement, and I love telling the story of how it populates around the world. Like, there are different versions of it, but it still has the same, you know, same resonant sort of visceral reaction that it generates in people. So that's coming soon.
And one of the things that I would love is you've done such great work. This is such great branding. And it's branding that I feel that shouldn't just be used by us as a city or by the GMCVB as a marketing arm, marketing and branding arm, but even by the local businesses. The local businesses as they engage in their promotions, that they could use it on their promotions, put the Art Deco District logo on it. Number one, because it's beautiful. It's the type of logo that I would love to have on my collateral, on my materials, on my graphics, because it's just beautiful. It sums it all up in one image. But without having to look at an address, you already know where it's at just by seeing that it's in the district. And so to the extent that we can make this branding available to our local merchants, our restaurants, our stores, our cultural institutions, so that they can place it on their own collaterals and further its reach. I would love to see whether...
Yeah, we could do like a toolkit that people can download some of our assets. It's a great idea.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Are there members of the public wishing to speak on this item? I'd be remiss if I would not recognize the president of the Art Deco Neighborhood Association, Irene Bigger, the brainchild of this item. Reality, I only place the item on the agenda. It's residents like Irene who advocate and bring these ideas forward that really help us champion these efforts. Welcome, Irene.
I really appreciate that. Thank you. I just have one initial request. Is it possible to take some of that today to the panel and kind of show it to people yet? Or I don't want to put you on the spot.
It's a public record. You could absolutely have it.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay. So I have just some formal words. Yes, thank you for introducing me, as president of the Art Deco Neighborhood Association, but I'm also a resident in that district, and I fell in love with it from the Northeast, and don't look back. It's paradise, and we are a unique area, and really appreciate you bringing this, highlighting this. So just so that I don't waste too much time, I just want to again officially thank you, Commissioner Fernandez, for bringing our request to the attention of the city, and for Commissioner Bott for joining in. Thank you, and bringing your expertise as well as Melissa and Georgie and your teams for your creative efforts. Our Art Deco historic heritage that makes Miami Beach the unique and special place it is does need to be celebrated and memorialized. With this year's centennial celebration, it truly is the perfect opportunity to highlight and create more visibility for the treasure that we have in the Art Deco community. A branding and marketing campaign focused on our elevated standards and that targets those who respect our city's rich history and culinary brilliance will affect every aspect of our community in a positive way. We cannot and should not shy away from promoting heritage tourism, even if the word might not be, from what I've heard from others, might not be too sexy, according to some. But what I'd like to say is that the lucrative industry of heritage tourism that represents 40% of global tourism and is projected to reach $778 billion by 2030.
You have time.
Thank you. $778 billion by 2030. Maybe it is up to us to change the meaning of what sexy is, because that's a lot of money, and I do find it sexy. And for those who are still might be adverse, we can also promote not just heritage tourism, and I really appreciate you mentioning that. It is heritage tourism. Again, we should not shy away. We can celebrate it. We can also celebrate and use phrases like cultural and culinary hub, cultural and culinary destination. It would properly reflect our area. So with that, I just want to express my sincere gratitude again to you, Melissa, and her team, and Georgie, and Commissioner Bott, and all the creative minds and experts in the city of Miami Beach that will come together to embark on this exciting and important branding initiative to help make this vision become a reality, and one that, as we just talked about, one that every visitor to the Art Deco district, attendees at every event, even the residents that live here, some that might not know, can see something and know that, and recognize it as we truly are a very special place. Thank you. Just a couple more things. We're having an architectural conference in November at the Convention Center. So I don't know if this is something that, Art Deco, we can just look into it. It's November 12th to the 14th. So I'm not familiar with this, but I think we need to look at it and maybe somehow put Art Deco, in there. And then also one last thing, it would be great to expand this down the road and, like you said, include businesses, but also buildings. We can include the history of each historic place. We can start with one, grow it to 10, 20, et cetera. So thank you again.
Thank you, Irene, and thank you for your passion for championing this. We mentioned Tallahassee, and I'd be remiss to say, Art Deco is not going anywhere. There are a lot of policies in Tallahassee that we've heard about. But ultimately, what is also true is that we have people that have helped put in amendments that preserve our architectural design in a very bipartisan way. Language that came out of the Senate bill sponsor, Senator Alexis Calatayud, that was sponsored by Senator Jones and presented together with Senator Ileana Garcia. And after it was adopted in the Senate, Representative Basabe pushed to have it included in the House version of the bill, and Representative Lopez presented it to him. So we have people that understand the importance of our Art Deco heritage and that have listened to our concerns and worked to amend the bills so that we can continue to highlight the importance of our architecture. And I see Irene is back.
And I'm sorry, I just we are an economic engine.
We are.
And we are very important to the state of Florida. Just wanted to
Yes.
add that.
Vice Chair Bond.
Yeah, just a couple of other thoughts. To your point, Irene, about sort of identifying key buildings and putting markers on it, which takes a little bit of time, but maybe something we could do in the interim, and maybe even collaborating with MDPL, because I think they have maybe some of this. I'm not sure if they do, but I think they have some kind of a, I know they have a walking tour with headphones, but I'm wondering if there's also an opportunity to do like a QR code, which could be something that goes onto doors or windows without taking the time that it takes to get a foundry to do the historical landmark. So as we work towards that, which is the goal, in the meanwhile, we could have you could just scan the QR code, have it be, signified with the Art Deco District logo, just an idea. And then the other thing was, to your point, Irene, some people don't call it sexy, but if you spend any time at the Betsy Hotel, that is super sophisticated and alluring and fabulous, and people have been coming for years to film commercials with that backdrop. And so I don't think we should listen to that narrative at all. I think we have many, many, many ways to, as Queer Eye for the Straight Guys says, zhuzh up the image and make it really appealing. And we're living in uncertain times. We're seeing airlines cancel flights, and we know that the tourism to the United States is on the decline for the short term at least. And so to have something that is impervious to that, because it is a draw, full stop, and there's no place else in the world you can go to see what we have. I think it's a very smart economic decision to put our full force and weight behind this.
And Melissa, just before we close this item, just to circle back on the outcome, we're gonna continue what we're doing. You're gonna continue on this work, but takeaways from this presentation, and great job on the presentation. We're gonna look at doing possible banners around the perimeter of the district, or even in the district.
Right, and like vinyl markers
And
on the buildings.
vinyl markers.
I like that idea that it's, so every building you can see if it's like the pastel blue or the pastel pink. That's a
Right, so
great
we have
idea, Commissioner.
the banners, the vinyls. We have reaching out to the businesses and allowing the businesses to use
Any of our resources.
exactly, so that it gets cross promoted. And something that I just want to throw out there, we have so much empty retail. Maybe we can do like a small merchandise store or a small merchandise.
Well, I'm very excited about having a store eventually in our headquarter hotel.
Right.
And I'm
at the
already,
store.
like, I have a laundry list.
But in the meantime, we do have our pop-up permits, and there are empty spaces on Lincoln Road and throughout the Art Deco district where perhaps we could do a rotating pop-up store or something, because this is such great branding that then goes back home and it becomes a force multiplier. They serve as great souvenirs, and others will want to be able to enjoy us as a destination.
I mean, to build on that idea, maybe it's, you work with MDPL where they have a store, but you expand it to, the two other ends of Ocean Drive. Maybe, just an idea. And then also the QR code possibility.
All
And
right,
Nick,
so
you got me as a sponsor,
that's-
right? Thank you.
That's a lot of feedback. Are there members of the public wishing to speak on this item? Irene already spoke. Are there any on Zoom?
Mr. Chairman, I have two callers on Zoom. The first one is Jane.
Jane, welcome. You have 2 minutes to speak.
Hi, everybody. I'm getting some feedback here. Thank you all so much. This is a great campaign. I really love it. And I just want to ditto everything Irene said. I'm the former vice president of ADNA and one of the founders. And we've been working very hard to get you guys to finally come up with this. And it's a great job. But I think that it needs to go further. Alex, you mentioned what can the city do to help the campaign? I think you need to come up with a budget to do a global promotion. And this campaign is great, but it's speaking to people who are already here. We need to reach out globally. We need to go to Europe, to South America, to Canada, everywhere, and really sell it. Sell it so people come here, because a lot of people don't know about it. It's great, once you're here, to recognize it, but I think there needs to be a global outreach. And that, I think, would be the next step to really promote it heavily. Besides, the social presence is great, but I think, to get a budget together and really do a marketing campaign, a professional marketing campaign globally would be like the next step. And also just to, emphasize the fact that we have a stagnant retail city here. We're kind of in transition. The old party thing is gone, and there's really nothing happening, and summer is coming, and it's going to be quite dead. And the whole heritage tourism cell as an economic engine is really where we need to pivot to, because they stay longer and spend more. So the whole, the alcohol has been declining. Alcohol sales have been declining for the last 20 years. My niece is in the alcohol business, and it's a hard sell. People in New York are not drinking. And, people here are probably drinking less too. And we need to pivot to a population, to a tourist that really gets Art Deco. And I think part of that is reaching out globally to get people to come here and recognize what we have. Thank you all.
Thank you, Jane. And a lot of that is well taken. I will tell you that the GNCVB is already working on this outreach. We don't see it in our market because in our market, they're not looking to reach Miami Beach residents. A lot of this is targeting based on your IP address or based on your location, based on your purchases, based on other algorithms. And so if we are seeing it here in Miami Beach, well, that's money that's being wasted. This is being, the GNCVB is actively targeting that. And I also know in one of the items that we sponsored, even our post-spring break kind of like reopening campaign that is running through September, they've done a substantial media purchase as well. We don't see that because, again, it's not targeting us. But that is underway. Great points, Jane. Thank you always for participating. Are there any other members of the public wishing to speak?
Yes, Mitch Novick.
Mitch, welcome. You have 2 minutes to speak.
Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Mitch Novick, 37-year resident of the Miami Beach Architectural District. Oops, I mean the Art Deco District. I want to commend everybody involved in this rebranding effort. I still think we need to go a little further in addressing the golf carts. I'm not necessarily talking about expanding the campaign to them with a QR code on their sides. At this point in time, I'm still far more concerned of the negative impact these blasting golf carts have throughout the neighborhood, and especially on the residents and hotel guests of my property. But good job. Thanks for the time.
Thank you, Mitch, and thank you for your longstanding dedication. Talk about someone that has been a champion for Art Deco, for historic preservation. You can't talk about historic preservation in Miami Beach or in Miami-Dade County without talking about Mitch Novick, who I believe also, Mitch, you were the chair of the Historic Preservation Board at the county as well, weren't you? I think we missed him. All right. And Dade Heritage also. Are there any other members of the public?
No one else on Zoom.
That's it. All right, great. Melissa, anything else?
No, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it.
And I appreciate you. And again, a big shout out to the entire team at the Office of Marketing and Communication. It's not a big team, but their work is big and it's far-reaching work. And so to you, to Linda, to PJ, to Guillermo, to Martin, to Aaron, to everyone in the team, really thank you for making us shine. You are what the public sees.
Our pleasure.
Thank you.
And Mr. Chair, do you want to show this as discussed and concluded based upon the recommendations in the Land Use Committee memo?
Let's keep it here. I think it's
Okay.
good. Let's have another discussion. Let's keep it on the memo on the agenda for next month. If we don't need to here, we can defer it. But I like the idea of having it here because such great work is being done. It gives us the opportunity to highlight it. All right, with that, let's proceed to item number 17.
Okay, item number 17 is to discuss and review planning and zoning restrictions that delay the permit process and consider possible amendments.
All right, with that, if you present the item.
Okay, Mr. Chair. This item was referred to the Land Use Committee at the request of Commissioner Rosen Gonzalez on December 11th of 2024, and it was discussed by the committee on February 20th of 2025. The committee discussed a number of different recommendations that were proposed by staff to address the delays in the permitting processes and potential options to streamline that. Based upon that initial memo, the Land Use Committee asked us to come back with some potential narrow amendments to the following. One would be required setbacks for the second floor of single-family homes. And what we've come up with is some tweaking of that that still maintains the requirement for the setback, but clarifies that it applies to the enclosed portion of the second floor, and also makes the setback for the street side portion consistent with the setback that is required for the front setback from the front portion of the home. Secondly, with regard to habitable projections for architecturally significant single-family homes, we've created some more latitude so that architecturally significant single-family homes that are being incentivized would have the incentive to do a 1 or 2-story addition and be allowed to have a projection within both a rear or interior side yard as long as a minimum setback of 5 feet is maintained. And along the street side and rear waterfront, these habitable projections would be able to continue to project not to exceed 25% of the required rear yard. If the Land Use Committee is supportive of these proposed amendments, we can bring a draft ordinance to the City Commission for a referral to the Planning Board.
Through the chair, I have some questions. I'm having a hard time figuring out what the meat of the conversation is versus
Me too.
the title. I mean, is it that by codifying what's allowed, the permit process will go faster because you're already saying what you can and can't do, and there's not so much back and forth? Or, because it seems like a lot of in-the-weeds stuff about distances and, like it seems,
We had, if you recall, when this item was discussed in February, we had come up with a number of different options that most of the committee was not super comfortable with. And there were 2 areas that the committee did have a level of comfort with developing, and that was the required setback for the second floor of single-family homes, which we've tweaked to address the issue of architects being able to better understand the requirement and to expedite the review time. So while from a substantive standpoint, there's not a major change, it's a tweak that we think might assist in architects better understanding this, and then also in turn expediting the permitting and review. With regard to the habitable projections for architecturally significant homes, this would allow for projects that propose to maintain a home to have more latitude with regard to an addition without having to go before a board for that addition because they don't meet the setbacks either for an interior side yard or they slightly exceed the setbacks when they're proposing a habitable projection within a street side yard.
I mean, I like the idea of codifying things so people know what the rules of engagement are and they can design to code, which would, in theory, speed things up. It seems like, especially for the larger houses, architecturally significant homes, a minimum setback of 5 feet on the side yards seems like it's really crowding the neighbors.
Yeah. I'm gonna
not
defer
sure about
this
this
item. I want to defer this item. I would like for the item sponsor to be present. I appreciate cutting red tape, and that's what I see here. This is good for cutting red tape. I just really want to make sure that the sponsor is completely aligned with some of the reductions being proposed here, especially as it relates to setbacks and these types of buffers. They're there as safeguards. So with that, I think it would be best to defer this item.
Okay.
And let's call, I see, let me see, I see parking is here. William, what item do you have on the agenda, William? Item number 5. Item number 5. Let me see. I'm just going with William because he's new in town. Oh, and Vice Chair Bott. This is your item, having to do with loading and deliveries. And this is great because we also have the police department present in the chambers. And it's always great to have their support. William, welcome. And we're going to let the planning director introduce the item.
Okay, this is item number 7. It's to review current loading requirements and how to mitigate the impacts of loading and deliveries on traffic congestion and residents' quality of life, including without limitation, increased enforcement efforts, as well as legislative amendments.
Vice Chair Bott, you are welcome to present your item.
I'm actually going to let our new parking director do the heavy lifting on this, but the very short version is that, you know, as Miami Beach becomes more and more crowded with tourists and tourism-driven industries, loading zones become a suggestion and not what actually gets used. And so people pull off to the side of the road and take up an entire lane of traffic on Indian Creek heading south at rush hour because the buildings don't want the UPS trucks pulling into their driveways, which is not tourism per se, but then you've got hotels who have, you know, we spent, I don't know, an hour talking about this yesterday, hotels that have a loading dock at the end of a cul-de-sac, and God help you if you need an emergency vehicle to come in and rescue you. So this is sort of a citywide issue on multiple different fronts, and with that, no pressure, but can you fix it, please?
Sure. So just to give some brief background, so outside of Manhattan, I would put Miami Beach's curb congestion up with major metropolitan areas like Chicago, Los Angeles, San Francisco, just for the simple fact of it's really not the residents, it's the amount of visitor traffic that comes to the beach, and then the deliveries that service those entities, the hotels, the restaurants, because obviously they need to be resupplied to be able to serve the amount of individuals that are visiting the island on a daily basis. And so one of the items that is in here, obviously there's going to be a joint effort between parking enforcement as well as Miami Beach Police Department to do the best that we can. We are also looking at using technology. Now, the good and bad of technology, our sister organization right across the bay, the Miami Parking Authority, is going into a pilot right now with some of the companies that have been listed in this memo that have this. We are currently piloting in our lots the use of automated citations. While that will help, unfortunately that is something that is a penalty after the fact, and it really won't solve the moment that somebody pulls in and takes up those space to just run in or blocks that road to just run in. So what we are going to do is continue the partnership with MBPD. For certain areas, like we discussed yesterday, we are going to look at creating some new routes for our parking enforcement officers to have a little bit more frequent eyes on in areas that we know are hot spots throughout the city. We're going to look at this through data, so we have where every single right-of-way violation has been issued. We understand where every ticket has been issued, and so we are going to start focusing on those hot spots, and not just on the penalty aspect, but on the re-education. Now, you know, sometimes that's a carrot, sometimes that's a stick. And then some of the items that I brought up in a meeting yesterday is we are going to be looking at new innovative ways that we can educate on the curb. There are some municipalities over in the West Coast, over in Southern California, that use curb colors differently than anyone in the state of Florida. And as long as there is an education campaign behind these curb colors, it makes that curb easily identifiable to the end user on what they can, where they can park. So they just have to look for those. So we're going to try to be innovative through technology, through enforcement, and through any other ways we can as far as educating the end user on how we can best solve this problem.
Vice Chair Bott. You love color.
I do. The more color, the merrier. It's
And
funny,
I love that idea because people don't read, so you need to make things visual for them.
Well, and one of the things that we've noticed is because we do have so many international visitors, a lot of times the signs, you know, all of our signs are in English, and a lot of time the font is really small. So if English isn't your first language, whatever that language may be as an international visitor, we might be able to get across, and I'll put out red curbs. Red means stay away. And so if we can say, hey, these places are not meant to be parked at any time whatsoever, then, you know, it's kind of an international color of stop, stay away, don't be here. And so I think we can do some really innovative things that are much more understandable to the end user.
well, even those of us who do speak English pretty fluently, those signs are sometimes really hard to understand about when you're allowed to park there, and it's always yellow. So it's, you know, it's half a guess as to whether or not you're going to get it right or not to understand what the sign is indicating. But so Listen, I am a big fan of throwing everything on the wall and trying to see what sticks, and I'm a very big fan of education programs and trying to break the cycle of patterns, and especially when we do have a lot of tourists. I don't know how many of the tourists are driving, but I will say that a lot of drivers, English is not their first language either, and so I think it will help regardless. So what do you need from us on this?
So right now, from my understanding with this, our team is already currently engaging with the different companies to better understand what technologies they have to offer. Obviously, we are about to institute one of the companies that we've been talking with already here on a pilot program for our on-lots. Our sister organization across the bay, the Mine Parking Authority, is going to actually be piloting one of the other companies that's listed in this memo. I think what we're going to do is talk with a few more different providers to understand the best guidance. Right now, the recommendation was to look at a possible pilot because the danger of going out with a contract is this technology is going to require quite an investment in capital improvements because it's going to require data and power throughout the city for these LPR cameras to be installed. And we're going to have to know what we're looking for. We don't want people to be stuck in a traffic jam and just start getting tickets.
Right.
And so we want to get a better understanding of what the capabilities are behind these companies. So I think just a little bit more time for us to better understand the landscape of what is able to be offered. And I think then, should we decide to move forward with a pilot, we will be able to come back to the committee with a recommendation of a pilot.
So a couple things, the painting and redoing the signage, like the color-coded signage, is that something you can start in an area and see if that works sooner than the pilot program with technology?
Yes, and so that's actually what, based on our meeting yesterday, we've kind of already identified a very small area that is problematic that we can try it out without, because here in the state of Florida, you don't cite based off curb color, you cite based off signage. And so we're not looking at changing any of that right away. So the curb color is really inconsequential. But if we can roll this out in a small area where we are constantly seeing problems, 200 block of Lincoln, again, also Washington on the 15, 16, 17, that area right there. So we can look at some strategic areas on rolling this out, get some communication. And I absolutely agree with you. There are some areas where we can do better with our signage. Sometimes it's very hard to get everything you want to say because we want to ensure that we are maximizing the usage of our curbs. So, hey, we load at this time, but we park this time. But there's some areas where the juice is not worth the squeeze.
Right.
And so we just need to have clear, concise signage so anybody can understand it. Because if being in the business as long as I have, if I roll up to a block and I start looking and going, okay, what can I do here? Then we probably can do better.
Okay.
And we will commit to doing that.
Okay. Another question for you is, in the cases where you need camera technology and LPR readers, so two things, and I see our police department representatives sitting in the back there, so no pressure, but you're up. Is there a way to tie in what already exists, where it exists, and or share the cost as new cameras need to be installed? And then separately, but related, we talked Tuesday, I think, at a different committee about potentially installing more LPRs throughout the city for security and crime detection to see people sort of casing the joint to see if they could see any unlocked cars. We talked about that. I think that's got some traction among my colleagues. So could we do this in a shared cost way? I mean, it may not be, I don't know if the LPRs need to be fixed or if they're in the right neighborhoods, but hypothetically speaking, and then I don't know, maybe this is a CFO question. I don't know if departments can share capital costs. I mean, if we're buying, let's say, 30 LPRs to deploy around the city, and 20% of them are going to go to parking and the rest go to police, is that something that gets potentially shared? David?
I think, Commissioner, at the end of the day, it depends on the type of funding that it is. It can be across the departments, but we can find a way if that's the solution that makes sense.
Okay, and then we do already have a bunch of cameras around the city, so you guys should definitely talk and see if any of the ones that are installed and operational would aid you in your effort and might help color your choices, no pun intended, on where you would install or initiate a pilot program. Like if there's a pilot program area that's of interest, and it's got cameras already there, can you tie into the police feed without denigrating the efforts of what the police folks need?
Well, and I'll defer to you, Captain, because I know you might know the technology a little bit better than I am. My understanding right now is on our mobile LPR units, we use Vigilant LPR technology. And so while we have different feeds because we don't want to see what they're looking for, I do believe that they see the data that we collect. So for example, if our vehicles are driving by and they hit a stolen car, our PEOs won't know anything about it, but I do believe that feed goes to MVPD.
Good afternoon, Commissioner Alberto Ventura, Assistant Parking Director. We are sharing our data with the police department on on our 3 LPRs.
The technology exists to be able to share that data feed, even though the camera, because we'll say we want our software looking for X, and then they have their software looking for something.
So maybe it's the software gets programmed differently, but the hardware is shared or something. Possibly.
I feel that's a possibility.
Okay, so I'm just saying, we're heading into tighter budget years ahead. I think we all feel that that's coming down the pike. It is definitely something that we need to address because the city is unmanageable in terms of driving around at certain parts of the day, and definitely certain neighborhoods. And we also want to increase our safety, which is a separate conversation, but tangentially related. So as you move forward, let's keep these lines of communication open. And do you need a month, 3 months to come back and give us an update? What works for you?
Can you give us 90 days?
Mr. Chair?
Yeah,
The chair says yes.
that's good.
So this will be continued to the September meeting since we recess in August.
Unless you can knock it out by July.
You want TBD on that?
It's a new parking director.
Yeah.
and we
I don't want
wanna
to
give-
overpromise and underdeliver.
Take the time you need.
Thank you.
Okay.
Very much.
We'll
Thank
see you
you.
in September.
I appreciate that, Commissioner. Thanks.
You can do a book report on your summer vacation.
There you
How I spent my summer vacation is figuring out LPRs around the city.
I don't know if the summer vacation is going to happen, but
No, I probably won't.
look where we live, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah,
Thank you, Will.
thank you.
And Alberto, I want to thank you because every day I'm sending you stuff, and you're always so responsive with the requests that come in and the communications coming in from my office. And I just wanted to thank you for always being on top of everything. You really are appreciated. Of
I
course.
second that.
Yes. With that, I see we have environmental and sustainability in the House to provide us with an update on our efforts on Parkview Canal. So with that, Mr. Director, let's introduce item number 1.
Okay, Mr. Chair. Item number 1 is discuss the North Beach Water Quality and Parkview Canal Report.
All right, Lindsay, if you'd provide us with an update of where we're at with our efforts.
Of course. Good afternoon, Commissioners. Lindsay Preck, Deputy Resilience Officer and Assistant Director of Environment and Sustainability. We have really great updates regarding Operation Clean Water, which was approved by Commission at the last Commission and had approved upon actions. And while the official launch is coming up on May 19th, that doesn't mean we're not doing anything right now. So I'll update you on those efforts. So in regards to Biscayne Beach Elementary, the administration met with the superintendent's executive staff on April 10th, and they committed to permit us to assist in the infrastructure and work together to address any of those concerns. And we were able to schedule on-site testing on April 26th, and we also conducted dye testing this past Monday, May 5th. So we're still working with them on those efforts. In regard to working with the regulatory authorities, we met with Durham's water control section also this past Monday, who advised that they would look into permitting history of things like private outfalls and also Biscayne Beach's infrastructure. In regard to stormwater cleaning and implementing that more rigorous program to double the amount of cleanings in the 6-month period, the Public Works Stormwater crew has already cleaned 1 time as part of that initiative, and they have another scheduled for early May. So this month there will be a second cleaning. They are evaluating locations for the filter fabric locations. As we all know, there was a significant flooding event on March 30th, so that has to be planned very carefully with the infrastructure we have in the area to ensure that we don't exacerbate flooding concerns in North Beach.
But with a more frequent cleaning that we're gonna be doing on the streets, you know, that should help address that. Because the goal is to be able to capture these materials before they make it out into the bay. So we're cleaning frequently. It shouldn't be clogged to the point where water wouldn't be able to penetrate through it.
Agreed. I believe a lot of these efforts will complement each other. I do think that there definitely needs to be planning involved, though, to see if there are areas that have experienced, you know, more frequent flooding, especially looking back historically at King Tide events, just to make sure we don't exacerbate those problems, given that we are still conducting more rigorous cleaning. In regards to Homeless Outreach has conducted a significant amount of monitoring in the area. They've encountered 2 homeless individuals, not consistently, but the same 2 in varying intervals. They have both refused voluntary services, but we continue to provide, you know, outreach and offer them those services. In regard to street sweeping, we are looking at mechanisms to work with parking to have cars moved. There are parking limitations in certain areas of North Beach, but since COVID, some of those have not been enforced strictly. So we're working to see what can be implemented in terms of having the cars moved at certain intervals so that the street sweepers can really get in closely to the gutter areas.
Yes.
Sorry, again, if I wait till the end, I'll forget my question, but we had initiated a alternate side of the street program a few years ago, North Beach, and I think it was disbanded or something.
I believe it is on hold. I'm not sure if parking or public works.
Yeah, but I believe that is an issue, but I believe they're using other mechanisms. I think they're using, they were hosing under the cars as a way to not having to make the cars move.
Commissioner, good afternoon. Jay Fink, Deputy Director of Public Works. In lieu of having those cars moved, we are utilizing blowers to blow the material out from underneath the cars with a sweeper going down the street. It's not as effective at clearing the streets, nor is it probably as the best management practice with regards to what is ending up in the storm drain, but it is cleaning and those efforts are continuing.
I just want us to realize what just happened right here. We are engaging in an effort as part of Operation Clean Water, and even one of our elected officials didn't know that we were doing that. And I want to make sure that the residents, and it's not that she didn't know that we were doing that, but that we're like actually, you know, a big component of this is making sure that the residents know that there's this active effort going on so that they partake in the effort to create the awareness, to create so that they know, okay, Operation Clean Water, I need to do my part to pick up after my dog. That I see garbage, the city is making an effort to pick up garbage, let me pick up garbage. That if I see a problem, let me either report the issue, or if I see homeless, I'm gonna call the Office of Housing and Community Services so that we create the awareness. I think that's an important thing, because if we just do it by ourselves, our true force is in the community supplementing what we are doing. And I think, Mr. Manager, communication has to be a part of it. Us by ourselves, we can't solve this by ourselves. Lindsay, I'm sorry, I interrupted you.
If I can just continue. So with regards to the pilot program that did go into effect in 2019, I think it was 2019. At the time, there was enforcement, started out with a warning, and then they went to an enforcement. The enforcement was issuing a ticket. The cars were not towed, but as soon as people started getting tickets, there was sort of self-empowerment, and they were moving out of the way. When COVID took a hit, we sort of abandoned the enforcement. The signs are still there. So those that aren't familiar with being able to leave their car without getting enforcement have gone back to the customary habit of just leaving the cars there. We did also have noticed that those same signs, many of them now are kind of faded, so it's even less of a reason to pay attention to it. I'm not sure exactly where we are with communications with parking, but we are going to ask for updated signs where needed, and then look at a program where we can go back and start with some level of warning for a period of weeks before we start the enforcement, again, to get the cars out of the way so we can clean those streets efficiently.
Yes.
This is a little bit of a bigger issue and not specific to parking, but, and I can understand why we sort of abandoned it in COVID because all bets were off. But the notion that we have signs that people ignore because they're faded, they're hard to read, we stopped enforcing, we never resumed enforcing, but the signs are still there, I think contributes to sort of an endemic problem throughout Miami Beach on a number of different issues where people are like, yeah, I know I'm not supposed to have this kind of sign in my window, but I've got the sign in my window. Or I've got a sandwich board outside of my store. And, you know, it's not, nobody's like murdering each other on the streets. It's not major, but it's this kind of sort of make rules and then they don't get enforced. And we hear this from residents all the time. And again, I understand why we stopped during COVID because that doesn't make sense or it didn't make sense. But you know, either remove the signs or announce we're doing this again and start up again. So and it's not directed to you guys. It's sort of just a comment on something that I think we're trying to, I know we're trying to get better on because we've had this conversation at least since I've been elected, certainly before, since you were. And I know this commission is very unified on, you know, either do something and enforce it or don't bother doing it. So if there is an opportunity to re-educate, replace the signs and do it, great, let's do that. But if not, get rid of the signs until we know what we're doing. And I know it's sort of a pain in the neck, like you have to make signs or put them up or not make the signs and take them down. Like, I get it, but
That's a program where they have to move the cars, they can't park in an area so that they can come in and sweep the street. But if they're parked there, then they can potentially get towed, right?
No, you get a ticket.
They get a ticket. Yeah.
But it's like, right now, it's none of the above. Like, the signs are there. If they're legible, they know, people know that they're not enforced at all, so they ignore it, basically.
I gotta tell you, I don't like the idea of I don't wanna put our residents through another vulnerable to another ticket if right now it's not there.
And I'm fine with that, but then let's get rid of the signs. If we're not enforcing, and that most of them are illegible anyhow, let's just get rid of them until we know, 5 years down the road, you know what? We're this close to solving the problem. Now the last missing
And I think
inch
they
is.
get that message.
Yeah.
Yes.
If I may, I mean,
Please.
we're at this critical juncture where we're about to restart this program under the auspices of, water quality. And it really is. It really will move that needle. And we've seen it before when we started this program where cars actually got moved. We actually got rid of, accumulated decaying debris in the gutter line by being able to get to those gutters. It also took an ordinance revision to be able to put those parking restrictions in place. So all of that's set in place. What we'd really like to do is utilize this as an announcement. Let's reinvigorate the program. Let's reap the benefits, and the water quality in Parkview Canal will improve because of it.
Then, I mean, that's, the issue though, I think that you're raising is, are we going to issue a penalty? I know we're not towing, which is great, but if we're ticketing, that's another potential hardship.
If we pass an ordinance reinstating this program, you're gonna have to start ticketing people when they may not have realized that they needed to move their car. Is that correct?
Good afternoon, Alberto Ventura, Assistant Director again. Well, the good thing is now we have a residential zone, so we have contact information or we should have contact information for everyone that's parking there. So we'll be able to contact them in advance. We can have communication assistance with sending emails. And then on the day that we start enforcing, we can always call the resident to move their vehicle before any action is taken.
And we could do the same thing that we did for the parking thing, where you have a phase-in, like over the next couple of months, we're starting this again, because we're really gonna move the needle on the Parkview water issue.
The problem is, law-abiding people will always follow the regulation. And the reason why we have the parking zone program is because we have a lack of parking. And so if you're not gonna have your vehicle parked there, you're gonna have to find a different place where to place your vehicle. And, that's my concern. Let's circle back on this, Jay, Alberto, William. Let's sit down and let's talk about it. I appreciate that you're blowing under the vehicles and trying to find a way of doing this that minimizes the impact on the quality of life of the residents.
And just one last thought, Commissioner, if I might. The way the program was set up was it was alternate street parking so that different sides of the street, different blocks would be impacted on one day, and then the following day they would go to the next one, the following another block. So that it was designed so that and it was only for a few hours, in that given day, but it was designed so that there was enough place for people to park without impacting, oh, you gotta have it off these 2 blocks, completely for the next, for tomorrow. No, that's not the case. It was designed with the thought that we do need to provide residents with ample spaces to park.
Sure. Thank you. I'm sorry, and you
No,
got interrupted.
no apologies necessary. The next item is regarding the UV pilot program.
Yes.
We just had a meeting with Dr. Shula Gabriel today to discuss the scope and the feasibility. So she's getting us an updated scope next week to discuss what's possible for the up to $10,000 that had been approved as part of this item. The shoreline cleaning efforts have also been implemented by sanitation staff. They're doing weekly cleanings with grabbers and visiting the area much more frequently. We've also instituted the Cleanliness Index, so we are working with Dr. Rosenfeld's team to develop a Cleanliness Index for this area, developing those evaluation criteria, and they actually did the field test this week. So our proposed launch date for that Cleanliness Index is looking like June 1st.
Excellent.
In regard to the monthly environment and sustainability inspections, my team conducted inspections in March and April. The March inspection did identify some deficiencies, including litter, trash. There were several doggy bags that were identified along the walkway that people had picked up their pets' poop and then left it.
Happens all the time.
So our staff did dispose of those when they identified them. We are continuing with those inspections. The April inspection didn't identify any major concerns. The biggest thing that was identified was there was a suitcase under the 73rd Street Bridge. So we reached out to sanitation, and homeless outreach is also monitoring the area as well. In regard to community cleanups, we're working with the Parkview Island Sustainable Association, and our neighborhood affairs team is getting together with that group to really complement what they're doing. No one knows the area better than the residents, so we really want to make sure we're just complementing those efforts and not coming in and taking credit for something they've done for a long time. I know you mentioned education. We are working very closely with our marketing and communications team. We've had several meetings to incorporate our We Heart Biscayne Bay campaign into this messaging for North Beach in particular. They have also documented the efforts that our city teams have done. This week they really started with the sanitation team documenting those efforts so that we can get that messaging out to the public, so it really is, one city, one team, but not just thinking about staff, but also residents that are very crucial in moving the needle on our water quality concerns in Parkview Canal. In regard to code efforts, since March 24th, code has conducted weekly walkthroughs in this basin area, and they've addressed 40 calls for service and have issued 5 written violations for the creation of a health hazard or nuisance, and they are continuing with those weekly details. And finally,
What do those relate to? I see code is here.
I'm not sure if Hernan can perhaps elaborate on what those health hazards might have been.
Good afternoon, Hernan Cardino, Code Compliance. No, I don't have that information. I'd have to pull that for you.
Okay, you can just circle back.
Sure.
Thank you.
And finally, last item on the list was to add doggy bag stations at locations where they're perhaps needed or where no dog stations exist. And there were evidence of hotspots as part of the UM Phase 2 report. So we've done an analysis of the existing doggy bag stations, and there are 10 that are serviced by park staff at the 2 parks in that basin, but also 11 that sanitation is responsible for. So there are 21 total that we've identified. We're looking to see if there's a need for more, but we're also working with the Office of Marketing and Communications to wrap them with our Don't Be Rough on the Bay and We Heart Biscayne Bay logos and messaging.
All right, as it relates to the UV, So do we feel that next month we'll be able to have a discussion here, our committee, as to the feasibility of utilizing the UV technology to help, I guess, clean, it doesn't clean, but it disinfects the water before it goes into the canal?
I believe we'd be able to discuss the scope with you, and also show kind of what we're looking at in terms of the proposal. We are looking to do different areas and, you know, a control and adding different things to the UV disinfection. So that will all be part of the proposal, and I believe we would be prepared to come next month.
And this would be kind of like a Band-Aid to the real water quality improvement, which we know is an injection well and that other type of technology. But in the meantime, the UV could be a temporary solution as it relates to the private outfalls. As I know, a lot of attention has been placed to our city outfalls, but then a lot of homes and other establishments have private outfalls. What is being done about those private outfalls, potential contamination that could be coming from them? Have we tested them? What's the status of that?
So the regulatory authority for private outfalls is DERM, and that falls under their Class 2 permitting section, or the water control section. So we held a meeting with them this past Monday.
Okay.
And they did say that they would look into the permitting history of this area, not just for private property outfalls, but also the school districts as well.
Okay. All right. Have those private outfalls been inspected to see their conditions, see if they're contributing to the problem?
We have elevated it to DERM, who does have the regulatory authority. Many of them are either grandfathered in, or when people decide to upgrade their seawalls and would have to upgrade their outfall pipes as part of that, that's what would trigger new inspections by the water control team. But they've indicated that many are grandfathered in.
Okay. All right. Hernan.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I do have those nuisances for you now, pulled by my trustee assistant. Looks like they were for leaking water, stagnant water, trash, illegal dumping, illicit discharge, and for not having garbage service.
Okay.
Not having,
Garbage.
Service, a
service,
requirement, yes.
Okay. Very well. And how often is code? Are these complaint-driven violations, or is code proactively?
Those are both, yeah, proactively and complaint driven,
Okay.
and it's weekly.
Okay.
And many of these observations, just to note, are part of the criteria for the cleanliness index.
Very good. Any other comments, Madam Vice Chair?
yes. I don't know how I have not already asked to be a co-sponsor on this, but
Of
with
course.
your permission.
Oh my God. I thought you are a co-sponsor.
Yeah, I thought I
of
was too,
Operation
so,
Clean Water. I think everyone. I thought it was a unified front of the city commission.
I think that was the other one.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's so much construction going on in North Beach that even though it's not necessarily directly on or adjacent to Parkview, as part of the cleanliness, the code proactively going around, are people specifically also looking to construction sites on the water? Because when I lived there, that happened all the time. There's just like all kinds of nasty stuff was being dumped.
Yeah, so we target that in many ways. So one of our environmental specialists goes out a couple times a week citywide to proactively inspect construction sites. We also quarterly train code on our water quality ordinance, so when they see construction sites that are a red flag, they know to issue those violations. And then we also had the new area managers start, who have been very aware of these issues and have been reporting them as well. So it's a lot of eyes on that issue.
Excellent. And then presumably, but just want to make sure that when you install new doggy spot dispenser bags, that there's also a trash can installed at the same time, because even when there are trash cans, sometimes people do exactly as they say. As you said, they pick it up, tie it up, and leave it right on the street. There's a trash can 10 steps away. But at least if we have one there, that increases the odds. It's great work. I'm very excited about getting into the Biscayne Beach Elementary field.
Yes.
So it's great that you've already been in to do some diagnostic
Not
stuff.
the field, but this is actually going to the sewer system and putting cameras and the dyes.
Understood.
Yes,
So
sorry.
no, that's fine. Thank you for clarifying. I was sort of
Literally
walking it off.
into the bathrooms and putting
Yeah.
dye in the toilets.
But as we find out what's going on, and as there is progress with the field itself, is any work going to have to wait until the summer? Like, is there some stuff, if we find issues, that we can start working on while they're still in session, or does everything have to wait until the summer at a minimum?
Our team is prepared to work with them, but I don't know if our Assistant City Manager wants to chime in.
Yeah, the school board representatives have committed that if we find something that needs immediate attention, they will allow either they will do it or allow the city to perform the repairs.
I want to
Excellent news.
thank the school board representatives because the moment that I reached out, they immediately connected the superintendent to our city manager. They immediately moved to have a meeting on site. They immediately allowed for there to be inspections of the pipes. Then this Monday or this past weekend that they went in and did yet another inspection. And so the sense of urgency to which they have reacted to this issue, it really, I just, truly grateful to the Miami-Dade County Public School leadership. And honestly, Commissioner Bott, I learned about this issue when I was campaigning, thanks to you. You sat me in your backyard. You explained to me to me what was happening with the elevated nutrient levels and the water quality issues in the Parkview Canal. And that's when, after I got elected, we started prioritizing year after year funding to make improvements that have yielded some results, but not the results that we need just quite yet. And that's why we're doing this 6-month push with Operation Clean Water. And so I'm glad and grateful that if you weren't a co-sponsor before, you were in my heart because it started with you instilling in me the knowledge of
Well,
it.
I appreciate that, and I want to commend the city staff because
Yep.
the previous generation of folks who were alerted to this kept telling me specifically and other people who asked, it's fine, it's almost normal, it's not a problem, don't worry about it, just get over it. And that is clearly not accurate or honest. And so now it's late, but it's here and we're working on it. And so I really appreciate the seriousness with which this is being addressed by everybody who's touching the problem.
Awesome. Thank
Hopefully
you.
not touching the water, but touching the problem.
Yes. Anything else you wish
That's
to
all
share
for
with
us.
us? Are there members of the public wishing to speak on this item? Seeing none in person, any on Zoom?
None on Zoom.
None on Zoom, all right, and also Omar Jimenez has been extremely, he's been a leader on this effort, and of great support guiding us with knowledge, so I just want to thank him as well. All right, so we look forward to circling back with you next month for an update on the UV on this issue.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So we'll show this as continued to June 10th.
Yes.
Okay.
Commissioner Bott, you have item number 10. I see procurement is in the house. And I'd be remiss, today was the last roll call of our Assistant Chief Paul Acosta after a long and, is today or was it?
It's tomorrow.
Today.
It-
Today at 3, we were here at committee.
I have
But
my
today,
comments tomorrow.
but today was the last roll call of our Assistant Chief, Paul Acosta, after a long and distinguished career with the Miami Beach Police Department. And I'd be remiss, number one, if I didn't apologize for us not being present. Unfortunately, we had to be here, but our heart and our appreciation is with him for his decades-long commitment and honorable public service to the city of Miami Beach. Not only is he a true leader in the Miami Beach Police Department, but he is a great overall public servant and a great human being. And his presence here in the city will be missed, but we certainly wish him much success and many blessings as he continues on to great new adventures.
And in case somebody can direct him to a recording of this meeting, I hope wherever he ends up next, they recognize how much he looks like George Clooney.
There you go.
You're welcome.
All right. With that, let's call item number 10, Mr. Director.
Okay, Mr. Chair, item number 10 is discuss strengthening the city's green procurement policies with regard to single-use plastic food service articles and encourage the use of alternatives and consider guidelines for the city manager to negotiate as part of future city contracts, additional restrictions on the use of single-use plastics, and commitments to use alternative products.
All right, Vice Chair Bond, this is your item. You're welcome to present it.
Again, I will not do the heavy lifting. I will leave that to our experts. Just an encouragement I know this is something we're all already quite unified in doing, but an update on what we're doing, how we're doing it, what we can do better, what we've started doing better since this was referred, a million years ago. Just let us know what's going on.
So good afternoon, Christy Bala, Chief Procurement Officer. The item before you is to discuss strengthening the city's procurement policies, obviously, including single-use plastic food service articles. The memo summarizes some of the city's regulations related to the use of plastics. It also highlights some regulatory challenges, and it provides examples of what some other municipalities are doing at this time. It also outlines the green procurement policy, which we established back in 2016. So it's been some time since we've taken a look at it, and maybe there is some possibilities to do that now with a little bit of time to incorporate some of these recommendations. Again, the policy speaks of guidelines and recommendations, but it doesn't have restrictions. So we do work through the procurement process with the Environmental Sustainability Department whenever we're developing different solicitations, and they will incorporate any recommendations or guidelines that they see that we can encourage the use of perhaps single-use plastic and things of that nature. So it's always been in our practice to work with them. There's also delegated authority to the city departments that perhaps is not a formal solicitation, but daily purchases that they may be delegated and authorized to purchase. And they also, by custom, we may try to assist if they ask questions and things like that, also environmental. And the green procurement policy that exists today, which again is from 2016, is shared with them for their use and hopefully applicability in any of their purchases.
Vice Chair Bond.
So you have not yet gone through the 2016 policy to see where there might be updates, opportunities for updates?
Not yet. We can work together with environmental and sustainability and do a refresh of the policy.
Yeah, I think that's definitely in order. And I know this is a little bit different because it's easier for us to control what we can control. But has there ever been any kind of outreach to businesses, local businesses? Because it's so shocking to me if you order takeout or whatever and it comes in all plastic, not environment friendly packaging. Is there any kind of opportunity, which is, I know, is slightly different, but to at least educate and share resources?
Yeah, so we've had the voluntary plastic-free MB program. We also have Skip the Stuff, where we educate businesses on just not offering plastic or only offering, and when people say yes, that's when they would accept it. We are looking to revamp the plastic-free MB program to really get that up and running again. But those are some of the voluntary initiatives that we use to educate our businesses.
So how much time do you think you need to take a look and review?
To revamp the policy might be a couple months. I think I spoke with Amy earlier this week. Just because she wants to do a more thorough work, we would also like to meet with some departments and see operationally what we can and can't, do and how it would implicate, their daily operations on what we can do internally. So a few months would be nice, I believe.
September?
September.
Dazzle us when you come back.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Christy. Commissioner Bond, we have two items. One that I have sponsored having to do with recommendations as to the Miami Beach sidewalk color policy as a public works item, and a companion item that you're sponsoring as to review design options. Shall we call those items 13 and 14?
Yes.
All right, Mr. Director, let's introduce items 13 and 14.
Okay. Item 13 is discuss and consider recommendations relating to the City of Miami Beach sidewalk material color policy. And item number 14 is discuss and review design options and maintenance strategies for Miami Beach red sidewalks.
All right, thank you, Mr. Director. This is an item that I placed on the agenda just to discuss what is our current approach. Sometimes we've seen issues where on a block-by-block basis, there have been issues having to do with the color, with the material. Do people prefer to have a more uniform gray sidewalk that stands the test of time better? Do people prefer the Miami Beach red color, notwithstanding the fact that it's hard to match and might fade over time? It's something that's been a long-standing conversation that comes up every once in a while, and so we have our Public Works Department, Jay Fink, here present to discuss and present this item to us.
And I'll open it up, Commissioner, but I believe the item really is more in the Commissioner's hand than mine. But the resolution was passed in 2019 with regards to what the administration was charged with, and that was when we replace sidewalks block by block, it should be moved towards the red color as opposed to any other treatment. And by that I mean if we're replacing a few squares here, a few squares there, we replace it with what's in kind. If there was a red, Miami Beach red there, we would replace it with Miami Beach red. If it was the regular concrete, we would replace it with regular concrete. Is more of a repair mechanism. But if we were going to do complete block by block, the charge was that we were to replace it with the Miami Beach red. I think we're all cognizant that there is a difference of opinion when it comes to where that may apply, where it may not. I and I'm sure you, as representing residents, have also heard where residents do not necessarily want red sidewalks in front of their home or a portion of their home or something else. So our city's recommendation is should that the 2019 order be relaxed, possibly, because perhaps there is a location where that red should continue in certain areas, certain district, certain zones, certain historic areas, and then where maybe we should be leaning away from that, and going back to a more traditional concrete sidewalk.
All right. Under this policy, under your recommendation, the historic districts, would they remain with the Miami Beach red sidewalk?
It's a pleasure of this body, but, from a public works engineering point of view, coloring something red means adding pigment to the concrete batch. It's not a heavy lift. It's not a heavy, cost. It's more of an aesthetic. What are you trying to achieve in this neighborhood? And I hate to say it's more, from a planning perspective, what are we looking at? What's the neighborhood, what's the ambiance that we're trying to portray here? As far as a historic district, I'll leave it to the experts to speak to the history of it. But from a public works perspective, we can really do whatever the pleasure of this body would be.
Tom, staff's recommendation.
We typically recommended that the red sidewalks remain in historic districts because that was the original color of the sidewalks.
All right, and then in the residential areas, we would keep it along the major corridors, but not as we go into the residential non-historic areas.
I think that was the policy direction some time ago, that when we got out of historic districts, there would be an option to utilize gray, but maintain for continuity purposes the red if the commercial areas of an historic district began to blend in with non-historic districts.
Correct. So you didn't have this patchwork of colors if you were to look down the street.
Okay. I feel like I'm missing something here. It sounds like what's being recommended is consistent with the current policy.
I believe that's the case, correct, Jay?
Okay.
I don't disagree, and I don't know whether, we want to formalize it and amend that resolution. We can certainly do that if that's the pleasure of this body.
these two, we should talk
Commissioner
about
Bond.
them together.
Yes.
I think we should talk about these two things together because I think one thing informs another. Like,
Sure.
So I'd actually heard, I think it was from Debbie, I wouldn't stake my life on that, but I think it was from Debbie, that the original red sidewalks was a term of, it was an expression, and we didn't actually literally have initial red sidewalks in Miami Beach. But because it's a, you know, like a thing that we talk about, it's become a thing. So I'm not necessarily opposed to red sidewalks, and I mean, everybody who knows that I am a big fan of our historic districts. What I am really concerned about, and Jay and a number of people in this room have been subjected to the walkthroughs of neighborhoods far too often, is how crappy they look. Not to put too fine a point on it, but if they were red pavers and consistent, that would be one thing, but they look terrible. And, you know, when you have store owners who are trying to take things into their own hands and paint them red to make them look better, that looks terrible, and also it's against code, so they get a citation. And when FPL or FDOT comes through and does a quick repair, they just throw up whatever they're gonna use, and it's not correct. So I would suggest that if we're going to keep them, or even in a more limited way, or throughout the city, whatever we do, we put on our grown-up clothing and think about how to effectuate this impact, get the, you know, the warm and fuzzy feel of the red sidewalks in a way that is different from the way we do now. Because the way we do now fades, it's inconsistent, it looks awful, and that is not the desired effect. So what might that be? And I, you know, I'm not a sidewalk engineer, so I don't know, but things that I think about are, you know, could you maybe do a path of pavers through the sidewalk? Yes, I know it's a little more complicated, it's a little more expensive, but it is a consistent red path, or along the sides. Or could you, instead of mixing in pigment to dye the entirety of the cement slurry pinkish red, put in like little, almost like terrazzo, but like little chips of something that would be red that would not fade over time. I don't know what's out there, I don't know what's available, but the current pigmenting is not good enough because it's inconsistent when it's new and it looks terrible over time. And so to me, it's making things look run down and shoddy as opposed to look how special we are, we're rolling out the red carpet for you, which is the intended effect. So for instance, when we saw Commissioner Rosen Gonzalez brought to the Art Deco Neighborhood Association a couple months ago, ideas that one of our vendors had come up with. I'm not sure those are exactly the right idea, and maybe not for the entire city, but certainly for the historic district, something like that, which are, you know, sort of paver inlays in various patterns. It might not even need to be that sophisticated and complex, but like, to me, that looks pretty cool. I mean, you go to Copacabana, or even across the way in Miami, where you have Richard Burley Marx sidewalks, which are so distinctive, and everybody knows where you are and what they look like, and you know, they don't look run down. So I think the conversation about whether or not we do them is predicated to some degree on what we're gonna do to make them look good in a sustainable fashion. That's my thought.
Let me ask you something. On the staff recommendation, it says that the administration recommends that instead of having entire blocks of sidewalks replaced from gray concrete to Miami Beach red, that the Miami Beach color only be utilized as highlight or in major corridors and entertainment districts. What do you mean by highlight?
Well, the highlight, similar to what the commissioner had mentioned, would be either a strip along the curb so that the majority of the sidewalk might be concrete, a concrete color, and yet, you know, 1 foot from behind the curb would be that red, so you'd get that continuous color.
Maybe the tree line or something.
Correct.
Have we ever engaged our, you see, to me, it is so emblematic to Miami Beach to have that red sidewalk. I can tell immediately on social media when people post videos and they'll be like, oh, look at what I just saw that happened in Miami Beach. I can immediately tell, yeah, no, that's not Miami Beach, or yep, that's Miami Beach. Because you just can tell. The sidewalk gives it away. It's something that's unique to us. I don't think any other city in South Florida has it. I don't think Coral Gables has it, do they?
Yeah, they have pink sidewalks.
They do have pink sidewalks. And what's the policy in Coral Gables,
All the new sidewalks I've seen have been pink sidewalks.
including in the residential
Yep.
areas? And how does a city like Coral Gables maintain the uniformity of the color in their sidewalk?
From personal experience, because I have 3 very large swale trees that have uprooted sections of the sidewalk, they come in and they replace it with red sidewalk that is brighter than the rest of the sidewalk, but eventually fades, and it looks fine. But new sidewalks are always going to be a little bit brighter when they're initially poured in, simply because they're brand new.
Yeah, I just have difficulty moving away from the red sidewalk. And I like Commissioner Bond's idea of, finding ways of preserving the red color in perhaps a different form that we're doing it now, whether it be brick or paver borders or some sort of other element. What I do think is that we should engage the community and getting community feedback and having them be a part of this conversation. So right now in the residential areas, in our RS zoning districts, how does it work? I know my neighborhood is gray, but parts of my neighborhood are red. I know Chase Avenue, where I live on, is red, but then I walk over to Prairie Avenue and it's gray. How is it determined that right now which blocks are gray and which ones are red?
I don't know that I can honestly answer how that was originally there. It's when they were placed at the time. And, there were neighborhood projects done in different neighborhoods along the way. And, at the time, different decisions were made as to, what colors got put where. So, I think we're I think that's what was part of the impetus of that 2019 resolution, was say, here's where we're going to go. Because there was no uniformity in where's this and where's that.
Mr. Chair, thinking and hearing the conversation, I'm kind of in the same boat, that I'm not really 100% sure that there's a roadmap or a sidewalk map in this case that tells us thou shalt paint this or color this a certain color or not. There's some general ideas, obviously, like Tom is mentioning about historical. Maybe what we need to do is bring this back and really dive into what do we really think, what areas should be what, and come up with some guidelines instead of making this so general.
I'm always happy to engage with residents, but my gut is maybe we really focus the effort on our historic districts. And at the same time, we talk to whoever's out there who might have different ideas of, is there an aggregate that you can mix in that gives it like red flecks that's easier to maintain? Or do we do just the corners on these blocks, and we do this beautiful red brick paving so you're coming onto a special part of the city? I don't know what's out there, but I think that should be part of the conversation. Differently from what happened at ADNA, where it was like, here are 3 ideas of what it could look like. But let's find out what the options are, not so much what the design is, but like what are the paving options that we can use? Because like I said, the mixing it into the, I don't know what maybe we're just not using the right thing. So maybe one of the phone calls is to Coral Gables and saying, what are you using? Maybe our cookie dough is made with insufficient ingredients and your cookie dough is better, and if we just switch over, then that's a different thing. I don't know, but I think that should be part of the conversation.
All right, so I think perhaps I think what you're saying makes sense to continue this to the next meeting. I'm just looking at this resolution from 2019, and the resolution from 2019 was that the city administration has recommended that the gray sidewalks be replaced gradually over time as new neighborhood projects are implemented. When an entire block is to be replaced, as to ensure cohesive sidewalk color pattern is maintained within each street, but it doesn't tell you what color is supposed to be.
And it
And then
doesn't
it says, the administration further recommends that the city commission delegate to the Public Works Director the authority to delegate, to determine if replacement of grade sidewalks with a Miami Beach red color standard is otherwise appropriate, such as in instances where significant portions of the flags of concrete within the same block are being replaced. I think that is so open to interpretation, subjectivity. I think public works directors come and go, but sidewalks stay. And so does the city's identity and brand that we want to preserve. So, gentlemen, let's come up with a policy. Let's sit down. I think the idea of coming back with a policy, whether it be the entertainment district stays red, whether it be that historic districts stay red, or whether it be that perimeters and commercial corridors stay red, and in the residential areas we go more gray. You all figure this out. Bring back to us a recommendation, because right now this idea that is open to interpretation, this opens the door to patchwork right now, and that's kind of what we do have at the moment. It's a patchwork. So let's continue this item so that the administration has time to come back with a recommendation. I will just tell you that as it relates to the Art Deco district, I do believe there, at least from 5th Street to 23rd Street, I do want us to preserve the red sidewalks. And we have to see what other historic districts we have. But then as we go into the residential areas or areas that aren't major corridors, I think, it makes sense just to have a uniform, policy.
And if I might add.
Yes, please.
I would just also, as you start thinking about crafting the policy, I think what I don't think the 2019 policy took into account was how do you handle it when things start to fade or get irreparably dirty? The number of times we redo entire blocks is much less than spot repairs or, FPL coming in and doing something or a building being built. So I think we need to talk about maintenance and upgrading as well as big opportunities. We'll call it the J. Fink red.
I like that, J. Fink red. And one last suggestion, perhaps we should seek the input of the Historic Preservation Board on something like this, and frankly, even maybe the DRB. HPB and DRB, their input, I think, would be helpful. That's why we have these boards. How much time do you need, Mr. Director?
If we're going to take these as a discussion to HP and DRB, I was going to suggest we bring it back in September, so that way that would give us enough time, I think, to formulate a policy. And then the other question is, do you want to maintain these as separate items, or do you want to combine them into a single discussion?
You want to combine them into one?
Oh, let's combine them.
Yeah, makes it easier.
All right, so
let's
we'll combine them into one item, and both of you are the sponsors.
Yes.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, we have one caller on Zoom.
Oh, yes. Well, any members of the public present in person? I see we have Troy Wright wishing to speak on this item. Welcome, Troy. It's good to see you.
Good to see you as well. Troy Wright, Washington Avenue Business Improvement District. I agree with Commissioner Bott in regard to the fading of the sidewalk. I mean, we like the idea of doing something to make Washington Avenue and Miami Beach stand out, but we're also in favor of doing something, as Jay mentioned, on the trim on the outside, or something special there that does uniquely mark Washington Avenue. But again, having it fade, it doesn't look that good. But if we can do something that holds and make it look vibrant, then I think it will go a long way. Thank you.
Thank you for being here. Any other members of the public wishing to speak on this item?
Yes, we have Larry Schaefer on Zoom.
Larry, welcome. You have 2 minutes to speak on this item.
Hello, everyone. I just sent an email to you both that contains information on a product that we use to resurface our walkway at our 1940 Art Deco home. It's a product called Behr Granite Grip, and it comes in multiple different colors, and it has an additive to it. It's a solid that almost feels like sandpaper. And it's got bits of it. You can get it in a color that's slightly red, slightly gray, and it can be used to cover existing concrete and create a new color. And it does take several coats, but it is a very high quality product. And you might want to consider using that. It worked out really well for us. And that would allow you to go over existing surfaces with something new. And I think it's a great idea to examine existing surfaces for cracks in places where it's not level. I know that Elizabeth Latone has been pushing for sidewalk repair, and that seems reasonable to do the repairs before you do a coating. And last, this is a term that's quite a handful, but there are polymer modified cementitious toppers or coatings that go on top of existing concrete, and you can change the color, you can change the sheen to things like semi-gloss and gloss, and you can actually create designs with it. And you might want to look into that category of solution called a cementitious topper. It just goes as a thin layer on top of existing concrete. So there are two ideas from the peanut gallery and the residents, and maybe those go somewhere. And thank you guys all for your hard work.
And thank you, Larry. You always have constructive and good ideas. Thank you for participating. And staff, if you could look into that, I'll share with you the email that Larry sent. If there are ways that we can find pigmentations to help update the color, that would be great. All right, so we'll send that to DRB and HPB. You all will work on a policy, and we'll bring the item back in September. Perfect. With that, unless there's any other pressing matter that needs to be heard on today's agenda, Mr. Director, is there anything?
Nope.
No? Mr. Assistant City Manager? No. All right, and Mr. Attorney?
No, sir.
No. Commissioner Bond, is there any other item that we need to have heard today? Okay. So with that, we're going to adjourn today's meeting. Thank you to all the members of the public who participated and to staff for your assistance. This meeting is adjourned.